Hello, everyone. You hear me okay? Yep, thanks to Addy, and I'm Rasmus Haugaard. I'm a research associate with the Middle Earth Project, and I've been working with the Hope Bay stuff since we went up there last summer, and alongside the whole MT survey, we also did some field work and some sample collection up in Hope Bay in August of 2023. So I'm going to show you some preliminary stuff of what we've been doing and some thoughts about what to do in the future with the samples and the field work that we've been doing up there. So I divided this talk and the Geoscience program of the Hope Bay into two main groups. So first of all, I know that there's a space for a little more adding to the sedimentary detrital zircon record in Hope Bay, and to get a better understanding of the provenance of the Hope Bay sedimentary rocks. So that's going to be one component of the Hope Bay Geoscience studies. The second one is very needed for the Hope Bay area in terms of what's been done there and what's not been done there previously. I called it the deeper roots of the Hope Bay belt. Going to present a little bit on the timing and origin of the Bathurst block granitoids. I mean, some of the field studies that might help us get a better idea of the timing and origin of the Bathurst block. And then some xenolith studies could be potentially a possible window into the Hope Bay lithosphere. I'm going to show you some fields, nice fields photos of a possible lampifier up there. And then, of course, the geological interpretation of the MT is kind of part of the whole crustal scale mantle, upper mantle architecture. So I'm just going to show you the Slate Craton and the geology in the Slate Craton very quick to get a better, if you're not familiar with the Slate Craton, it's a relatively small craton in Northwest Territory and Nunavut, and here is the geological map of the Slate Craton, and then the main general stratigraphic column is here to the right. And if you just look at the Slate Craton from this perspective, you can argue that there's some familiarities with the Superior Province in the terms of you have an older basement rocks underlying the greenstone, or the supercrustal rocks. In the central and western part, it's the deep pink colors here is the basement rocks, which goes from Hadean to the Hadean all the way up to the Mesoarchean, end of Mesoarchean. That basement rock, these basement rock underlies the supercrustal all the way to this point, this arbitrary line I draw right here. This is approximately where the basement rock is no longer influencing the supercrustals to the east of that line here. So the central slate basement complex is overlain by a thick supercrustal sequence with the CAM group, the central slate cover group, which is a quartzite, aronite, banded iron formation sequence. And then a huge thick CAM group with a tholeidic sequence right here. And that's followed by the Banting group, which is a bimodal felsic mafic volcanic sequence. And these volcanic rocks is distributed throughout 30 plus greenstone belt that's distributed throughout the Slate Craton. And then on top of that is the well-known Burgess Formation, which is part of the Duncan Lake group, and that is an interesting formation. It's a huge sheet of grey Waka turbidite, Waka mudstone turbidite rocks. The age of this has been established to be between 2661 and 2650 million, so 10 million years of deposition of these sediments. And the 2660 age is going to be important a little later for what I'm going to talk about at the Hope Bay. So the familiarity with the similarity with the Superior Province from this perspective is really not valid anymore if we look at the distribution of the supercrustal rocks in the Slave Craton. So 30% of the craton, the supercrustal rocks covers 30% approximately of the craton. 70% of the supercrustal rocks is sedimentary, so mostly the turbidite sequences. 25% is volcanic rocks only, so that is very different from the Superior and definitely different than the Abitibi Greenstone belt for the craton as a whole, the distribution of rocks on the craton as a whole. I should mention that a total of approximately 19 million ounces of gold has been produced out of all the gold occurrences in the Slave Craton. Most known is the Giant and Con, the biggest producers, the past gold mines around Yellowknife, but then Colomac and Lupin and the Tundra Salamita has produced various amount of gold. Good news is that the Back River Gold Project on the tundra of Nunavut here is going to be producing next year, apparently. So that's going to be a new gold mine out there. And just to show you, this is the Hope Bay, situated all the way up there in the northeastern part of the crater, in the Bathurst block. Oops. So just to show you a rough cross-section of the craton from southwest to northeast. This is a very rough model modified from Helmstad, and you can see the central slave basement block is a Mesoarchean to all the way down to 4 billion years old. It's located like to the east. It goes down under the eastern slave basement, which is a more juvenile basement, 2.7 approximately ages, and it's kind of defined by the neodymium isotope systematics in these late stage granitoid that intruded the whole craton in the Neoarchean. So to the east of this neodymium line, there's no interaction from these granitoids with the older basement, and to the west of this, there's a moderate to intense interaction with the older basement rocks. So I colored the Hope Bay Bathurst block out here orange, just to showcase the Bathurst block. It might be part of the same eastern slave basement, 2.7 billion years old, but maybe this study will show some different results. Yeah, so the Hope Bay, we're zooming in on the Hope Bay Greenstone belt here. It's a elongated 80 kilometers times 30 kilometers wide. Neoarchean greenstone belt. It's surrounded on all sides, except the north sides, with bounding granitoids. That's and in many ways, this greenstone belt looks like an Abitibi, a very little baby of Abitibi, just caught in the wrong craton. But I will talk about that a little later. There's 3 deposits, 3 bigger gold deposits in the Greenstone Belt. The Doris up here in the north, which is a mine. It's not an active mine right now, but it's ready to mine anytime. The Madrid deposit is in the construction phase, or hopefully. And then the Boston deposit down south is another gold mineralization in the south. And I think the estimated resource is around 10 million ounces, but that's the best estimate of the resource in the Hope Bay. These deposits, I'm going to show you the volcanic stratigraphy of the belt. There's a total of 5 volcanic suites in the belt, and if you take the oldest one is the 2700 felsic volcanic Flake Lake suite. That's followed by 4 other volcanic panels, felsic volcanic panels, that defines the volcanic stratigraphy in the belt between 2716 and 2662 approximately. So the range of that reminds us a lot about the Abitibi age, around 50 million years of volcanic activity. It's only the oldest felsic volcanic unit, that's a tholeidic, that's been generated by the tholeidic volcanism during probably a rift setting, and that is very equivalent to the CAM group, mafic basalts, or mafic volcanics in the Yellowknife supergroup. On top of that, the 4 younger felsic volcanic rocks is all alkalines, so presumably from an arc-related volcanic setting. All the gold deposits is situated within the tholeidic volcanic unit in the older part of the belt, I should say that. Mostly related to the D2 deformation event, which is parallel to the lithological context that goes from south to north. And so the sedimentary provenance, I'm going to just briefly talk about that. A lot of the work that has been done in the Hope Bay sedimentary rocks has been carried out ages on the maximum depositional ages, trying to figure out the maximum depositional age of the sedimentary rocks. The gray here is all the sediment that's there in the Hope Bay. The scale is the same. The scale is the same between here, so I just dragged the sedimentary rocks out of the Hope Bay and put it here. And these are a lot of Vega mudstone turbidites, but also some conglomeratic arenites up here in the north, which is interesting rock type. I will talk about that a little later. So the maximum depositional ages ranges between 2715 to 2664, and they've been really well established by Shrimp and Tim's ages, and there's a total of approximately 100 published detrital zircon ages from Ross's work, but also a lot of other workers previously, and they established these maximum or younger zircon that indicates the maximum deposition ages of the sedimentary belt. So I think with some more laser work, we can actually get a better, more thorough provenance study of the sedimentary rock in the belt and get an idea if for example, if there's multiple sources involved in the sediment, or it's only a single source, if it's all local derived material to these sediments. And here's an example of the conglomerate sandstone in Hope Bay that I mentioned. This outcrop here hasn't been really undergone any thorough geochronology and sedimentary work, so I'm looking into this interesting conglomerate sandstone in Hope Bay, which looks like it's a lot of local source debris. All the clast is pretty much volcanic, locally derived. So I'm going to look into more details in the sandstone petrology and geochronology. I'll laser ablation some of the detrital zircon in there to see if it's all a single sourced provenance or not. So far, a lot of the material in these conglomerate is sourced from the Cognac-Feltic volcanics, which is 2677, so that's a Banting equivalent volcanic rock. But the maximum deposition rate of this is established to be 2664, so that's very close to the onset of the Berbers Formation. So is it the onset of the Berbers Formation, or is it a later conglomerate? We don't know that yet. So I'm going to move to the timing and evolution of the Bathurst block granitoids. So you can see it's really a huge amount of granitoids that surrounds the Hope Bay belt, and they haven't really been investigated that in detail. And that's my goal is to look more in depth with the evolution of these granitoids. There's 3 ages has been obtained from the granitoids. There's a 2608 up here, which is post to the volcanic, post to the Greenstone belt formation. And then there's a synvolcanic intrusion up here in the northeast, which is 2672. And then all the way down here, there's a 2650 million year granite gneiss suite dated. But that's about it. And I think there's space for doing more work on these. And I've been sampling, last year we've been sampling some of these granites. And just show you some photos here, and they really range from being more diuretic to more tonalitic to more classic granitic composition. So I think there's space for doing more work on these granitoids, and especially we want to ID TIMS and get more exact crystallization rates of them, but also I think Ben Neal is in here somewhere. He's visiting from, he's in from U of A, and Graham Pearson's new postdoc, and he will look at these granitoid more details in terms of the half-time isotope systematics, and in conjunction with whole rock neodymium isotopes to get an evolutional history of these granitoids. And I think that's going to be very valid. And also when we have these data, we can also compare it to some of the granitoids that's been done in the granitoids that's been done in Abitibi with the half-time isotope data. The Synolith study, I'm going to just show this slide here from an island that we visited up here in the bay, right here. I was actually going to look at this conglomerate, which I did too, but then it happened, like the only flat spot we could land was right here with the helicopter, so that was right on a what I think is a lambophyre, very dark, ultramafic, mica talc rich rock. And we collected, I was there a very short time, but we collected a bunch of these Synolith. It's a Synolith bearing lambophyre. And all I can say right now is they are not volcanic Synoliths. They are medium to coarse-grained, ultramafic, mafic to ultramafic Synolith. And from what depth and from what region in the lithosphere, I don't know where this originated, but we will investigate this in more detail in conjunction also with the U of A. So the last 10 minutes, I just want to go through some of the crustal resistivity of Hope Bay and some very preliminary interpretation that we've been doing. And as Adi showed, this is the grid, the MG grid over the Hope Bay. And I'm going to show you, just go through some of the horizontal depth slices through the Hope Bay Greenstone belt. So these are slices that goes from surface and then all the way down to the approximately 20 kilometers, 16 to 18 kilometers depth right here. And if you just flip through those, you can see in the upper part there's a lot of noise, but then further in depth there's a more pattern that comes to our eyes that shows that there's a north-south conductive features that goes up along the belt right here. And if you focus on the Madrid deposits, I put that in here. There's just south of there, there's some good conductors south of the Madrid, but it starts right here. It's so tiny here, so it's around 1 kilometer depth, and it lasts to all the way here, and then it disappears, the conductive, the south of Madrid, which is pretty interesting. So the Madrid sits in a more resistive crust down at 5 kilometers depth or so. If we turn our eyes to the Boston, there's one feature that's really interesting at the Boston. This is these two features that comes right here close to the Boston deposits. It's kind of north of Boston, but around here, this conductive feature gets more and more prominent. And what's really interesting is this is linked to another crustal feature as further depth we go. So this feature goes all the way to the surface just north of the Boston deposit. And this is some of the stuff we're working on right now to figure out get a better 3D grip on that. So in depth, you can see the resistivity, the upper resistive crust, kind of disappear around 20 kilometers depth, where things get more and more conductive. So what that transition means and what it means in Abitibi is a very important question, I think, to come up with some suggestions of why that is. I'm just going to show you some cross sections too that we have been doing. Cross sections of the Madrid deposits right here. So there's 3 cross sections, A, B, C, and these are presented on a fence diagram right here. And the Madrid deposit is up here. And the take-home message from this, you can see the greenstone belt is the bright green, that's the belt, and then the bounding granitoid is the pink and the dark green here. And there's a prominent feature that's just south of the Madrid, 5 kilometers south of the Madrid, that actually goes to surface, but it's more or less connected to the conductive mid-crust, but that we're working to get a better sense of this feature south of the Madrid mineralization. If you go down to the Boston deposits, I got 6 slides. I sliced the belt in 6 west to east going transects right here, and Boston is the second last transect right down here. I forgot to actually label them, but the Boston transect is down here to the south, and this is to the north here. And what I showed you on the depth profile, the horizontal depth profile, was this path, or this conductive path that goes down up here. This is actually connected to each other and goes up to surface right here and just north of Boston in the northern part of the Spider Lake. So that's a really prominent feature. So is this feature that's connecting with this in a south to north striking pattern right here, but not as prominent as the north feature right here. I'm going to show you those on a north-south cross section too. Addy showed you briefly those, but here they are with some rough general geology on top. Boston is situated right here. So that's this one of the conductive pathways that goes down to the mid-crust. And this is the prominent zone of conductive, maybe it's an alteration zone that goes up to the north of Boston, right here in the Greenstone belt. The Madrid, on the other hand, this is the conductive zone to the south of Madrid. You can see it's prominent at surface and down to 5 kilometers, but then it seems to be detached to the lower part of the conductive crust right here. But more work is needed for these, and we need to constrain the model a little better. But so things will change, but probably not. These features will probably not change in terms. They will still be there, I think. But let's see in 6 months how well the model is constrained then. Yeah, so that's it. I will have to say thanks to Agnico Eagle for hosting us up in Hope Bay. That was a fantastic trip. So yeah, take any questions.